I had, pretend this is a mug of tea. I had a mug of tea sat here. I have been using the brand new 14-inch MacBook Pro for around about 6 months now. This is the cheapest one you can buy, so it has just 16 gigs unified memory and 512 gigabytes storage. And when I first picked this laptop up about 6 months ago, I made quite a few videos about it because I absolutely love it. But 6 months later, the way in which I use this laptop has changed a hell of a lot. And I did also have quite a big scare with it, like very big, but I'll come on to that in a little bit. Do I still recommend using this laptop? Would I recommend getting one? Do I still enjoy using it? That's what we're going to have a look at in this video. Let's get into it now. So before we go any further, if you are new here to this channel, my name is Scott Edwards. I make all sorts of videography, photography and tech related videos. So if they are the sorts of things you are interested in, consider clicking that little subscribe button just down below there and come and be a part of this community. So as we are all well aware of by now, the introduction of Apple's own chips with the M1, the M1 Pro, M1 Max and now more recently the M1 Ultra has changed everything. These new Macs are so powerful, and even the cheapest M1 Macs are more powerful than all of their competitors and capable of some incredible things that were a lot more difficult when Apple were using Intel chips in their MacBooks. So when I first bought this 14-inch MacBook Pro, I was predominantly using it to make these YouTube videos because at the time I was making maybe 2 or 3 videos a week for my channel, and this sped up the whole process so much. I came from the 16-inch Intel MacBook Pro, and that was a brilliant laptop. I loved using it, but even moving to this cheapest 14-inch MacBook Pro, this is leaps and bounds ahead of that 16-inch Intel MacBook Pro in every single way. The speed and performance of this thing are genuinely incredible, but I think the main thing for me coming from the 16-inch Intel MacBook Pro are the heat and the sound issues, because the 16-inch MacBook Pro with the Intel chip produced some serious heat and the fans were so loud. It was really off-putting when you were doing things like making videos even with headphones in, because I could hear the fans whirring around even whilst wearing headphones. This pretty much solves that because it produces very little heat. It will warm up when you are doing heavy tasks, and then the fans will kick in, but when they do kick in, they are so quiet. They are not off-putting at all, and you can continue to do things whilst using the external speakers on the MacBook, even with the fans going, because they are that quiet. They're not an issue at all. And then even if they do turn on because it is starting to warm up, once it is cooled down, the fans just switch off instantly and it is back to running silently again. And I think that really goes to show just how powerful and efficient these chips really are. And I think probably the extra thickness as well has something to do with that, because you can get even more air flowing around the inside of the device. But they are so good, and I think the fact you can work almost silently is a huge bonus. So for making YouTube videos, as I've mentioned, this thing sped up my workflow no end, because I edit inside Final Cut Pro, which is incredibly well optimized, as we know, to run on the Mac because it is an Apple piece of software. It absolutely flies through everything, whether it's 4K footage, you name it. But everything I've thrown at it, it has not had a problem at all, even with some huge video editing projects. But in the last couple of months, I have become a full-time photographer and videographer, which means that this has now become my daily driver for every single day. Every single day I'm editing photos, videos on this computer for a lot of the day. So that means that it is being put through much heavier workloads, editing hundreds of photos because I do a lot of real estate photography, event photography, and this does all of that inside Lightroom and Photoshop, even bigger video projects as well. And does it still stand up? Do I have any problems with it? No, I literally have never had a problem with it, and I've put it through some serious workloads. Now, as we all know, Apple's own apps such as Final Cut and Logic are so well optimized they run so easily on all of their devices because Apple has full control over everything they do with them. However, because I was starting to use Lightroom and Photoshop a lot more for work and with some huge files, I was slightly worried that even this M1 Pro chip would start to struggle just a little bit. And that is because apps like Lightroom and Photoshop do tend to be quite heavy on memory because they are made by third parties such as Adobe, meaning they're not quite well as optimized as Apple's own apps. But even though that is the case, Lightroom, Photoshop, you name it, still runs so smoothly on this M1 Pro. It is so capable. Now, apps like that definitely are much heavier on memory. If you open the activity monitor while you are inside Lightroom, you will see that you are using much more storage in your memory than you would be while you were editing inside Final Cut Pro, for example, which might seem a little bit backwards because Final Cut Pro is video, Lightroom is photo, but Final Cut Pro is using less memory. That's how well optimized Final Cut Pro is for the Mac. But even so, I have never had any issues. It's never slowed down on me once, and I would definitely recommend the M1 Pro chip if you are doing any sort of video editing or photo editing. And don't forget as well that this thing only has 16 gig of unified memory. That goes to show just how efficient and powerful these chips really are. And I think the M1 Pro, I've said this before, the M1 Pro is more than powerful enough for the majority of people. If you are doing photo and video editing, you will not have a problem with it. Unless you are working on huge files and huge projects, I don't think you need to go for the M1 Max. You might want to upgrade the storage or maybe go for 32 gigs of unified memory, but 16 gig unified memory is not the same as what 16 gig RAM used to be with the Intel chips. It is so much more powerful. Now, I did say at the start of this video as well that I did have a bit of a scare with this MacBook a couple of weeks ago, and I was sat at that desk there just behind me and I was editing some photos, and this is all through my own fault, I might add. I had, pretend this is a mug of tea, I had a mug of tea sat here and my phone was sat that side, and I reached over for my phone, and as I pulled back I knocked the mug of tea and it went all over my MacBook. And I mean literally all over. I'm not exaggerating at all. The keys were covered. I'm genuinely not exaggerating at all. I thought it was gone. I thought it was gonna die and there would be no rescuing it at all. Very luckily it lives on and it is working as if nothing ever happened to it. You would not tell that this was drowning in tea because everything still works. All the keys still work perfectly. All the ports that I was worried about at the time still work perfectly. No issues with it at all, and it was covered in tea. I'm genuinely still baffled as to how it works, because usually if you spill any sort of liquid on a piece of technology, it is a goner. Now, I know mobile phones now are waterproof. These things genuinely aren't waterproof, but I think it goes to show just how well built these things are now. Now, I'm not saying that every time you spill water or a drink on it, it is gonna survive. It's not waterproof. I think I genuinely got incredibly lucky with it. My point is, these things are so impressive and they are built so well. Genuinely get what you pay for with these things. I know people will have different experiences, different opinions, and other people won't be as keen on them as others. That is always the case with absolutely everything. But I genuinely think for most people, this will suit most of their needs. And I do really think you will struggle to find better value for money for performance, build quality. Everything you get on this, it is incredible. I've not even spoke about all the specs and everything, like the display. If you want to do that, I've made some other videos that I've linked up there in that playlist, so go and check that out. But yeah, 14-inch MacBook Pro, I love it. I'm gonna be using it for a very long time. I'm not gonna spill any more tea over it because I think, again, I got very lucky, and next time I won't be so lucky. So yeah, that is it for this video. Let me know your thoughts on the MacBook Pro 14-inch. Have you got one? Are you thinking of getting one? Do you like it? Do you not like it? All of that stuff. Come and say hello in the comments. Give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I shall see you all in the next one.